Space looks empty when we stare into the night sky, a vast black stage sprinkled with distant lights. Yet that picture hides a deeper truth. What we call nothing is actually a restless field, quietly shaping every movement of matter and every tick of time. Even in the deepest vacuum, invisible energy is boiling, stretching, and whispering instructions to the universe. This is why planets know how to orbit and why light knows how to bend. We were taught that space is merely where things exist, but in reality, it is something that exists on its own. It pushes galaxies apart and pulls clocks out of sync. Once you realize this, the silence of space becomes unsettling because it is not empty at all. It is busy, alive, and constantly rewriting the rules of what it means for anything to be here, even when it appears perfectly still to our... We picture the universe like a theater, with stars and galaxies acting on a silent stage. But that image quietly misleads us. Space is not a backdrop waiting to be filled. It is an active participant that shapes every event. When something moves, it is not simply crossing empty distance. It is responding to the invisible structure beneath it. The structure stretches, compresses, and curves, guiding matter the way riverbanks guide flowing water. Gravity itself is not a force pulling objects together, but space telling them where to go. That means every step you take is influenced by the geometry of the universe. Once you see space this way, the idea of emptiness disappears. What looks like a void is actually a complex, dynamic fabric, always shifting, always affecting you, even when you feel completely still and unaware of its quiet control. Time feels steady, like an invisible river, flowing at the same pace for everyone, but space quietly dictates how it moves. Clocks on Earth, moving through gravity and space, tick differently than clocks in orbit or on distant planets. This is not a flaw in measurement. It is the universe revealing that time is entwined with the very fabric of space. Where space stretches, time slows where it compresses. Time speeds up. Every second you feel passing is shaped by the hidden geometry around you. This means the past, present, and future are not universal truths, but local experiences, dictated by space itself. Once you accept this, the idea of absolute time crumbles. The seconds on your wrist are not guaranteed anywhere else in the cosmos. Time is not independent. It is a melody played by the shape and motion of the invisible stage we call space, and we are forever dancing to its rhythm. Light seems to travel in straight lines, a perfect messenger cutting through emptiness, but that assumption is a lie. Space itself is not flat. It curves, twists, and warps under its own invisible pressures. When a beam of light passes near a massive object, it doesn't bend because the object pulls it. It bends because space beneath it has already tilted. Even in the darkest voids, the path of light is shaped by an unseen architecture that we can barely perceive. This means every ray that reaches our eyes has already been manipulated by the universe itself, carrying secrets hidden in its trajectory. What appears as straight is often curved. What appears as simple is deeply complex. Once you grasp this, the notion of light as an absolute truth vanishes. The emptiness we rely on to see the cosmos is secretly sculpting the image we think we observe, quietly controlling what reaches us. We look around and see stillness, mountains resting, planets hanging in their orbits, atoms seemingly frozen. But that stillness is only a mask. Space itself is alive with motion, carrying everything within it in ways our eyes cannot perceive. Galaxies drift not merely through empty distance, but upon the flowing currents of expanding space. Even light and matter, which we think of as independent, are subtly guided along invisible paths by this restless medium. Your body, the ground beneath you, the air around you, all are being moved, stretched, and influenced by the silent dance of space. Nothing exists in isolation. Every object, every particle, every thought is part of this ceaseless movement. When we understand this, the idea of stability disappears. The universe is never still, and what we perceive as solidity is merely the result of countless interactions happening inside an ever-shifting, invisible sea. Galaxies appear to drift apart, slowly receding into the dark, but they are not moving through space. They are being carried by it. Space itself is expanding, stretching the distance between everything in the cosmos like an invisible, unstoppable tide. This expansion is not caused by anything we can touch or see. It is the fabric of reality itself, quietly pulling at the universe, stars, planets. Even entire solar systems are passengers on this cosmic flow, powerless to resist. The farther apart two galaxies are, the faster they are carried away, as if space itself is whispering. This revelation changes everything we thought about motion, distance, and gravity. What we assume to be vast emptiness is in fact a dynamic, restless force dictating the pace of cosmic evolution. Living inside this accelerating stretch, we experience only a fraction of its power, unaware that the universe is quietly pulling itself apart around us. We assume distance is a fixed truth, measurable and absolute. Yet space quietly undermines this belief. Galaxies that seem separated by vast emptiness are not simply sitting still, nor are they moving through a fixed void. The space between them is stretching, carrying them apart without any force pushing them. Light traveling across the cosmos does not follow a straight, predictable path. It curves, twists, and bends according to the invisible contours of space itself. What feels near or far depends entirely on the hidden geometry shaping every photon, every planet, every particle. Even the most distant stars may be closer or farther than our senses allow us to imagine. Once you understand this, the familiar grid of the universe dissolves. Distance is no longer a reliable measure, but a shifting, dynamic property of space. The universe is not a static map. It is a living, moving, unknowable fabric. We like to think we can move freely, explore the universe, and understand its vastness. But space itself quietly imprisons us. Every step we take, every motion we make, is guided, constrained, and shaped by the invisible geometry surrounding us. We are embedded within space. There is no outside, no escape, no vantage point from which to observe it as a whole. Even light, which travels at unimaginable speed, is bound by the same invisible structure, forced along paths, dictated by the fabric we cannot leave. Our perception of freedom is an illusion, crafted by the very medium we inhabit. The universe is not a playground. It is a prison whose walls are invisible and infinite, stretching in every direction, carrying us along without permission. Once you realize this, the sense of autonomy we cling to vanishes, and existence itself becomes a quiet surrender to the relentless motion of space. Space is not invincible. It has boundaries, extremes, and points where its rules collapse. Black holes are the most visible signs of this fragility, regions where the fabric of space folds in on itself, crushing light, matter, and even time into an unknowable singularity. At the edges of the observable universe, space stretches so rapidly that light can no longer reach us, creating regions forever cut off from perception. These are the cracks in the invisible stage we thought was stable. When space breaks, our familiar rules of physics fail, and reality becomes alien and chaotic. We cannot step outside it to measure or control it. We are trapped inside its distortions, carried along by its violent currents. Understanding these fractures forces a terrifying conclusion. The universe is not a predictable, safe environment. It is a fragile, restless, and uncontrollable fabric, and our existence depends entirely on its quiet cooperation.